Growing up, I always felt safest when my older brother, Hamza, was home. He was loud, a bit annoying, but his presence, his energy, it just filled the house with life. Until the night he disappeared. There was no fight, no argument, no warning at all. He was just gone. Everyone, all the adults, kept telling me to move on. But how do you move on from something like that? Especially when the police file is just one sentence. Last seen inside the home. We never sold his room. My parents couldn't bear it. They kept it exactly the same as the day he vanished. And that empty, silent room, that's where the horror began. A year passed after he vanished. A long, quiet, agonizing year. Then I started hearing things. Not loud noises, nothing that would startle you. It was subtle, just movement. Soft footsteps in the hallway outside his door. The sound of someone shuffling around. And sometimes, if I held my breath, I could hear breathing. It always came from Hamza's room. At first, I told myself it was just grief playing tricks on my mind. My brain trying to fill the silence he left behind. But then strange things started happening that I couldn't explain away. One night, I was cleaning his room, dusting the furniture, just like my mom asked. I placed a glass of water on his desk. I remember it clearly. The next morning, I walked past his room and the door was slightly ajar. I looked inside and my heart just stopped. The glass of water, it was on the floor, but it wasn't spilled. It was standing upright, perfectly placed in the middle of the room. Like someone had gently set it there. I ran to my mother. She just sighed and said, "Beta, you're just emotional. Your mind is tired." But she stopped saying that a few days later. She went to clean his room and found his window wide open. The latch was turned from the inside, and his bedsheet, which was always perfectly made, was pulled halfway down, creased, and wrinkled, as if someone had been sleeping there. We kept that door locked every single day. I checked it myself every night before bed. So how was the window open? How was the bedsheet moved? I felt like someone or something was coming back home. I couldn't take it anymore. The doubt was eating me alive. I had to know if I was going crazy or if something was really happening in that room. So I decided to record it. Just for one night. I figured if I recorded an empty, silent room, it would finally calm my mind. I took my phone, placed it on his dresser, pointing directly at the bed. It had 82% battery. I made sure the room was locked tight. Then I went to my own room and tried to sleep. The next morning, I woke up with a jolt. I checked my phone. It was completely dead. The battery had drained instantly sometime during the night. That was weird, but I charged it up, my hands shaking a little, and I played the video. For the first hour, it was exactly what I expected. An empty, still room. Silence. Then, at 2:58 a.m., the door handle started to jolt violently. Even though I knew the door was locked, I watched the handle twist down, then twist again, then stop. My breath caught in my throat. 30 seconds later, the camera was still focused on the bed, and I watched as the bedsheet just dipped down, as if an invisible person sat right on the edge. There were no footsteps, no figure. Just the sheet sinking under an unseen weight, and then I heard the whisper. It was faint, distorted by the phone's microphone, but I knew it. It was a voice I grew up hearing every day, a voice I hadn't heard in a year. Amina. It was my name, whispered from my brother's bed. My blood went ice cold. I dropped the phone, and it clattered on the floor. I couldn't breathe. Was he alive? Was he trapped somewhere? Or was this something else, something pretending to be him? 3 nights later, the power went out. The whole house was plunged into darkness. My parents lit some candles and went to sleep, but I couldn't. I was too terrified. And that's when I heard the sound again, coming from his room. It wasn't footsteps this time. It was scratching, a frantic, desperate scratching sound. I stood outside his door, my heart pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I reached out, my hand trembling, and the moment my fingers touched the cold metal of the doorknob, the scratching stopped, but a new sound replaced it. The closet door inside his room creaked open. I had to know. I turned the knob and pushed the bedroom door open. The air inside felt thick, heavy. It was a suffocating feeling, like the air was being pressed out of the room by something I couldn't see. My single candle flame flickered violently, then went out, leaving me in total darkness. I froze, every muscle in my body screaming at me to run, and then I heard it. From inside the closet, a choking sound. It was half breath, half cry. A desperate, gurgling word. ... help. I knew that voice. It was my brother. It was Hamza. I ran. I don't even remember my feet hitting the floor or how I got out of that room. All I remember is the sound of the closet door slamming shut behind me with a deafening bang. My father finally believed me. He called specialists to check the house, electricians, structural engineers, anyone he could think of. He even called a paranormal expert my aunt recommended, just to cover all the bases. The electrician said the wiring was fine. The engineers said there was no sign of forced entry, no drafts, no animals in the walls. They all found nothing. But the last expert, the paranormal investigator, he was different. He walked into Hamza's room and immediately froze at the doorway. He slowly approached the closet, not taking his eyes off it. He reached out and touched the wooden door, and his voice was barely a whisper when he said, "He never left this house." I felt sick to my stomach. He opened the closet. My father and I peered inside, and there, etched deep into the wood on the back wall, were scratch marks. They were fresh, and they were in the exact same rhythmic pattern my brother used to drum with his fingers on his desk when he was thinking. My mom saw it and just collapsed into my father's arms, sobbing. The expert turned to us, his face pale, and said, "Something is in here, and it's mimicking him. It wants you to open that door again. It wants you to let it out." That night, I tried sleeping in my own room. I locked my door, but it didn't matter. At 3:03 a.m., I heard my door creak open. Standing in the doorway was a shadow. It was tall, much taller than my brother ever was. It just stood there in the darkness, not moving, just watching me. And then it spoke. In the voice I loved most in the world, my brother's voice, it whispered, "Amina, I'm cold. Let me in." But the voice wasn't right. It cracked and stuttered, like something was just learning how to speak, forcing the words out. I squeezed my eyes shut, covered my ears, and started praying, just repeating the words over and over. When I finally dared to open my eyes, the shadow wasn't in the doorway anymore. It was crouched right next to my bed, bent at an impossible, unnatural angle. Its face was just inches from mine, but the face, it wasn't my brother's. It was wrong, stretched, distorted into a wide, horrible grin. It whispered again, in that broken version of his voice. "Why didn't you open the closet?" I screamed. My parents rushed in, flipped on the lights, but there was nothing there. The shadow had vanished. We moved out 2 weeks later. We just left everything and ran. We couldn't sell the house, so we rented it out. Last month, the new owners contacted us. They sounded nervous. They asked if we ever heard strange noises coming from the boys' room. They said their young daughter was having nightmares. She claimed someone keeps calling her name at night from inside her closet. She described the voice to them, a young man, sounding soft and warm and kind, a voice that says, "Open the closet." I'm still in here. We never ever told them my brother's name, but their daughter, she told them exactly who was speaking to her. She said, "The boy in the room keeps calling himself Hamza.